is why we have to live with nature, because nature knows, we have to live in a, and the native people I've studied with are very much this way. There's the 4 seasons, and each season.
Quick general question.
Go ahead.
So is this basically, all of these things we're talking about, is this all part of your studies of under the topic of biodynamic farming?
Well, I mean, some of it is. I was studying a lot of this stuff like long before biodynamic farming. And this is why I tell people that I'm a specialist in nutrition, because I look at a lot of the other things that most even nutritionalists, even, naturopaths and homeopaths are not even looking at. I mean, this is the thing that blows me away. I was standing out in front of this, a friend of mine. I was chatting with her, and she had an appointment with a naturopath here in Reno. And a lot of these people won't even talk to me anymore. These homeopaths and naturopaths try to put me on lists because they feel like, I'm getting into their pockets, their money system, instead of what they should be doing is hiring me to come in and to help some of their clients.
Oh my
because
gosh.
They don't even know what's going on. And so we're standing out in front, and there's a lot of things that occur to me. For example, buying a lot of products, even tinctures, from companies, which a lot of these homeopathics and naturopathics do, and then this stuff's on the shelf. And then you have all these energies of these people coming into the building that are impacting these tinctures that are sitting on your shelf. So just energetically, you have these sick people coming into your clinic, and then you have these tinctures on a shelf, and, your mood, their energy, is weighing really heavy on those medicines. And this is something like I'm really protective over the types of medicines I make. Mine are stored in an area where there is no Wi-Fi. There is no electrical grid, no negative electrical impact, and other people don't go into this space. It's just me and my dog. So I really protect the medicines that I make these days from, as much as of the negative pollution, even being from humans.
Right.
So you're going to be buying these supplements and these medicines that are impacted from how many people walking into that clinic that are sick or whatever else. So how good are those medicines going to be electrically? Energetically. And so we're standing outside, and I was talking to her before our appointment, and she said, and I'm looking at these plants that there's like this, ornamental kind of plants that are out front of this naturopath's office. And I look down and I see Mullen, a little Mullen weed growing, and I'm thinking, boy, you're going to be like pulled out of here in a heartbeat. And all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, she's got a few plants here that are trying to talk to the naturopath inside. And so she came outside, and I said, so what are you using for, like lung inflammation and stuff like that kind of a thing? And she said, well, I've got a couple, tinctures that I'm using. And I said, well, none of them happen to have Mullen in them, do they? And she said, well, yeah, one of them has like some Mullen. I think there's one that has some Mullen in it, for respiratory, kind of a thing. And she goes inside, gets the box, looks at it, and says, oh, yeah, here, on this Breathe Easy respiratory thingy that she gives people, oh, yeah, it has a little bit of Mullen. And I was like, we have Mullen growing here in the front yard of your office. And she looked around, and she didn't even know what it was.
Good for you. Good for you, Bridget. Oh, my God, that's amazing.
So what kind of a professional are you going to be, even an alternative, if you allow someone, you have Mullen that's trying to communicate with you in the front of your office.
Right.
And then you allow the office people to come along and rip it out and spray it with poison.
Right.
And then what's your relationship to that Mullen now? It's not a very good relationship. It can't trust you as a living being.
That's an amazing story.
And so this is the thing with farming, all the stuff that I've done over the course of my life to understand human health, to understand the earth, the health of the earth, to understand the health of the insects and everything else, because all of that impacts us, is that most of the people, even in the alternative, don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. It's just more of the same. It's like, oh, okay, people complain, so I'm going to go homeopathic now. From what I'm hearing from you, it's more, it's like the same systemic things, just, slightly rebranded.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's not really what we should do for the new way.
Right, so, well, anything on the planet needs a diversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, diversity is everything. Diversity in diet, diversity in insects, diversity in microbial mass, diversity in plants, and their relationships to each other, along rivers, and, you have all these diversity of plants along rivers. Those root systems hold the riverbed together, but they also actually help to filter, the water and clean the water as the water goes down. You take away those plants from water systems, then, you don't really have the aid of those plants to clean it. So everything's about diversity. So you have a lot of these people, naturopaths, homeopaths, doctors, all these different people that are operating, and they have no diversity. So, I mean, how is that going to affect your health? It's not a diversity. They're not a diversity. And they aren't diversifying, because they think that, they're somehow above everything. And they're not really actually laying their hands on the things that, in our environment that are causing issues. Like, I have a client of mine who sent me this person, and were asking me about their dog, and their dog has, like, this cough. And the doctors tried, like, all kinds of stuff on the dog, even gave him kennel cough vaccine. And, I've talked about vaccines before, how we can get them from the animals, and animals can get them from us. And because they cross, they can really F us up, mm-hmm. and cause us long-term problems that, But she said, the dog still has the cough. And I said, well, are you kind of aware of chemtrails? And she said, well, no, I'm not aware of that at all. So I gave her all these websites to look it up. And I said, basically, your dog, has, like heavy metals and stuff in their lungs. And they're not being able, the lungs are starting to be clogged. And the sinuses and everything else with the chemtrails and the heavy metals and the nanoparticles and whatever else. So I got her some, I had her get some stuff to help the dog the best you can. I mean, you can't get rid of a lot of this stuff, but, you can use zeolite to help pull the heavy metals out. You can use DMG is one of the things I like a lot. Oxygenates your blood. So it helps the body. Even if you're not breathing in as much oxygen because the chemtrails or your lungs aren't working as good, you can take the DMG and it oxygenates your body. And it also can help fight against the fungus that are in the chemtrails that you're breathing in. A lot of people, get fungus and animals. So, and then LDM to kind of dry up the mucus and the other stuff. But anyway, so she got this stuff, started helping her dog started to improve. And like I said, these are not cure-alls because, we're all contaminated heavily with the chemtrails. Mm-hmm. And then she started doing this huge study on the chemtrails. So she goes back to the veterinarian because there's an appointment. And she said, well, I don't really think, I'm going to do any of the kind of treatments that, you're offering or anything else like that because they weren't really helping. And I went and talked to this, traditional osteopath that works on, specializes in nutrition and who works on people and animals. And so I've got my dog kind of on a program and the dog's doing really well. And the vet got like really pissed off and started, telling her, well, in the state of Nevada, nobody can work on animals other than veterinarians. It's a level 2 felony, and that healthcare provider, we could arrest her and blah, 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 blah.
What? Oh, and, my goodness.
Yeah. And so the lady's like, but I talked to her on the phone. She didn't, work on my animal, And she realized like how crazy these people are. And she tried to get an appointment with a guy who called himself a animal homeopathic in the area. And she realized like that, you know, he did seem to know a lot, but he also didn't know anything about the chemtrails, or that was in total denial of the chemtrails. And so she was like trying to school him. And the other problem was that she said that he offered no real medicines. You know, where my work's a lot different. Like, you know, I'll send you links to products that I think are really good, you know, so that you can get those yourself and you can do them. You know, I'm really well versed on the type of products. And so
that's
a lot of
exactly
these
how
people
our
really don't have anything to offer. I mean, but the thing is, when I got brain cancer, I had been, you know, having my own little alternative medicine practice for quite a while. But I didn't realize, like, how horrible alternative medicine was, you know, medical was, until I got brain cancer. And I had no real options. You know, I had no real choices. I actually had to, like, take a machete and literally, you know, machete my own path back to health and cure my own brain cancer. I mean, a lot of different people contributed it along the way. But, you know, it just goes to show you, like, how having health is ridiculously hard. Because it's almost like they don't want to have a healthy environment. They don't want us to have healthy food. And I heard this doctor recently on this interview, because these people are always calling me and trying to get me to, like, do these pyramids to sell nutritional supplements and whatever else. And it's all like a scam. And this is the deal. People say, oh, yeah, well, you know, I got these people on this stuff and it's really changing their life. Well, of course, because guess what? They didn't eat anything that had nutrient before they started taking that stuff. Now, if they were growing their own food and eating that food, they would have had a major health turnaround.
Right.
I mean, because most of the stuff is packaged in plastic. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to get something that's going to help you, you know, because you can't really get it from where you're at now, right? So that you could segue into better choices or better understanding or better education about your health, then definitely do it. I tell people, like, a choice between a Big Mac or commercial kale that has pesticides on it, no brainer. Commercial kale with pesticides on it is way better than a Big Mac.
Right, it's like the lesser of two evils, right?
We have to get past, you know, we have to keep going down the road, right, and making sure things get cleaner and cleaner. Because the more that we get involved with our environment, the more that we get involved with the soil in our own yard, the more that we get involved with these things, the more we have a starting point, an acupuncture needle in that area that starts to change our area, change our vibration. And these are things that are really important.
Oh, that's cool. It's inspiring. Bridget,
I mean, everybody can grow food. I mean, that's the thing, is like, you know, it's not rocket science.
Well,
it's the simplest thing to do is just to start growing something. And
not rocket
just
science,
for people that might want to know where they can get, like, some nutritional stuff that start off now, there's a website called Sprout People, and you can buy any type of sprouting seed, and you can get the trays, and you can start sprouting your own food. Now, a cup of sprouts, I get the longevity blend. I love that because it has, like, all different kinds of little cabbages and all this other stuff, and you sprout that, and it's just, like, super power food, and it's living. I mean, you have to eat living food. You can't eat dead food. Anything cooked is dead.
May I just say, though, that even though it's not rocket science, it's intimidating. I'm just giving you the perspective of, you know, when I think of all the people that I've worked with over time and their lifestyles and how they function and the way our society is going, it's not rocket science, but it's intimidating because it's different than the drive-through, pick it up, you know, pre-prepared foods, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Your teeth and gums have a relationship to chewing because your gums is a connective tissue. So if it's not used, by eating a lot of soft food, drive-through food, right? Then what happens is your teeth will fall out because the tissue, your gum tissue, becomes soft.
Entire time. So that doesn't surprise me.
Oops, I think that was Danielle via Dr. Lenny's mic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's pause here for just a second. I just want to make sure that you tell everybody about your website and just with 23 minutes to go.
Yeah, so my websites are still being migrated by HostGator because GoDaddy decided to weaponize their server. But I have coe-llc.com that's stuck on a plugin, so you can't really see it right now. Best place to go is my YouTube channel, which is Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project. And then I'm getting rid of my Facebook. I've notified people on Facebook that, I'm getting rid of it, and if they want to contact me.
Good luck with that. I tried to do that, and I wasn't allowed. I'm not kidding you.
Right. Well, the thing is at least they know that I'm not going to be on Facebook anymore, so I won't be signing into it anymore. So.
Oh, my.
And then I have my radio show on Saturdays, Carrying Stones and Digging Holes radio show. You can find the past shows on my YouTube channel, and then it's live on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. We're the oldest, 11 years old, maybe 12 years old, truth radio online network. And you can also find us on the TuneIn app as well. So I'm on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have lots of amazing people.
Yes, lots of amazing
on my
people.
Show.
Yeah.
Other question. I have a lot of amazing friends. That's the thing is I'm really lucky. I know brilliant people.
Well, it's because you interact with them and you ask, you go out there and you hit the pavement learning and asking questions, and it's amazing. But for those people that maybe want to have a health consultation with you, whether it's for themselves or their pet, not saying that you're a felon, Bridget.
I'm not a felon.
But that you're prone to committing.
Ways to squeeze us out. And then the one thing is, I'm a traditional osteopath, and if you do find one, usually it's a DO, a doctor of osteopath. But traditional osteopaths, we were around before the AMA, the American Medical Association, and then they started licensing people and eradicating people from being able to practice what they're trained in.
Right.
And then you had to go to their school, to learn what they wanted you to learn. So instead of going through apprenticeships, finding people, I'm old school. A lot of the people that I studied with were in their 90s. And so I do a lot of hands-on work that you can't find anymore. I'm an anomaly. I think I'm an anomaly in the whole United States as far as all of the work that I do. And it's interesting because, a lot of people who should be my colleagues and everything else usually revolt against me. Want to take me down. Because it's always about money. It's never about
it's never
what's right.
Right. It's not about what's right. So if somebody wants to have that consultation with you, best way to book with you is
email.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com, or you can find me on Skype, BRIDGNEIT, Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. I'm pretty out there a little bit on the internet, so it's pretty easy to track me down.
And I can say that I have had consultation appointment with Bridget, and exactly like she said, after we were done, first of all, I was writing notes like crazy the time that we were talking, and afterwards she very promptly followed up with links directly to the recommended vitamins and things that she advised from my unique
But I don't make money off of the supplements. I
mean, no.
Now I have my own tinctures and my own products that I can send out.
Oh, that's cool.
That I do charge for, but I don't. All the products, I usually pick the top of the line products, and that I think are the top of the line products, and it doesn't matter who makes them. I send out those links for people to be able to purchase them.
Which I appreciate.
When they have time, based on what they have for income or whatever else, so that they can start kind of working that process. The other thing, too, is that I highly recommend is I do what I call shamanism medical sessions. And those are really important, too, because they sometimes can pick up and heal things that like are connected to us, and creating patterns. You can go down, I follow the timelines and I try to pick up and heal. Sometimes those lines lead to future lives, and then I can help people to unplug or replug in, or a lot of people have weird technologies that are implanted into their energetic fields that sometimes need to be dismantled and removed. And so there's lots of different things that can happen to us, as we're processed through the incarnation, cycles.
This is really bugging me. A lot of that
stuff needs to be healed. Huh?
This is really just screaming in my head. I want to go back to that Mullen story, the Mullen. What would you have done with the Mullen?
Well, I would have gone out and I would have thanked it for, coming to me so that I could learn more about it. And I definitely would have probably petted it. I pet them when I go out in nature, and I'm wildcrafting. I mean, since I'm in school, I have to make a lot of different kinds of medicines, and there's a lot of work that, like I'm doing. And now it's like I go into nature and I touch everything. And because I'm walking through the same areas, and I have to watch and wait for certain plants to become at the stage where I need to harvest them. Mm-hmm. So I get to watch them through their whole growth phase. I get to see them where they're at, and I severely interact with them and talk to them, at every stage of the journey, and I wait for them to tell me, when the time is right. So, wow. And for example, if I had an office and I had a yard, mm-hmm. I probably would have ripped up anything that wasn't edible or medicinal in the yard. And then I would have planted, wildcraft from seed out in the environment and brought those seeds into my yard and started growing the medicines there. So, when people walked up, whether they notice it or not coming into my office, they would already be interacting with the medicines, and I could watch the vibrational things that go on in the person's energy field as they were walking into my office, passing all these plants and watching if the plants want to work with them, what the person's vibrational rate is with the plants, what plants would be too intense. For example, I had a friend of mine who was and this is just a really good story about it, but he used to tell me that he was down in South America. I don't remember if he was in Peru or whatever. I've lost contact with him, but he's a real official, sorcerer, shaman, native South American guy, old family line. And he would have people would come for healing and training. They would be there anywhere from a month to 6 months. And he would take them through, these rites of passages and help them to clean up their life. But the first test that he would always do is he said that first he had to find out how far the person had fallen from grace, had fallen from the Garden of Eden, had been, how far genetically, family-wise, had this person been out of the Garden of Eden, right? because that was going to tell him like how sick they were and how sick on all different levels. And so he had this place where he would go, and it was like this giant forest wall, like this rainforest. And so they would get there to the trailhead, and then they would walk in down the trail, and then he would give them instructions. You know, when they get to this huge forest wall, went from, you know, one side to the other, and you couldn't see visually where it ended on both sides, and then you get to the opening of it. And so he would give them instructions, like, you're just going to go in, like, you know, 100 feet, 500 feet, or, oh, hold on a second.
That's okay. Well, she's tending to her BFF. I just want to remind listeners that you're listening to The New Way on Steampunk Radio. That's Steam with 2 E's.
Okay.
And we are listening to Bridgette Lyn. Go ahead.
So anyway, so he would say, you know, walk in, you know, 50 steps, and then turn around and walk back out. Or, you know, he didn't want them to go in there for a long period of time or get lost. But what would happen is, he said, depending on how far away the person was from the natural world, which he looked at as the spirit world, he could tell by how the insects would react, the birds would react, all the sounds, the plants. Because when he would go into the forest, right before he would get in there, the jungle, everything's squawking. All the birds are making noises, the trees, and the wind comes, and the trees are making grunting noises, like, you know, blowing back and forth. The leaves are going, because it would be really excited to see him, because he's so connected to it, right? So he said he'd start walking towards, you know, this rainforest, this jungle, and all the animals are just going crazy because they can't wait to see him. You know what I mean? They're like greeting him because he's one with it, right? He's one with the Garden of Eden. He's standing in grace. And he said, so when he'd send the people in, he said he could tell right when they were walking up, because everything would just go silent, as if none of it existed. Because the person had, you know, genetically is so far away from nature, right? Hasn't had any experience with nature, and is so displaced in the world and displaced away from the spirit world, you know. And so he said he would just, you know, be blown away at how quiet the whole thing was. And so his job, basically, he felt, was that he had to get them back in alignment, standing in their own grace, back in alignment with the natural world, and reconnecting them back up to the natural world, that hopefully the test back into the forest before the person left, at least there'd be some noises going on. May not be tons, because you have to build those relationships. So whenever I look at plant medicines and things like that these days, or how I react to plants, is that I have to have like a solid relationship to them, which means I have to touch them, and I have to interact with them, and I have to talk to them, and I have to respect them, and I have to trust them, because, you know, they're older than me.
Right.
I mean, they're way older than I am. I mean, like,
makes sense.
You know, one thing with Horsetail is that I just recently worked with, boy, Horsetail was intense, but it's really become like an amazing teacher, and I'm just so glad that it's reaching out to me, and it's really helping me to kind of have a broad understanding. And I've got a tincture right now from Horsetail that I'm working on, and I mean, I'm going to be ingesting a plant that's 300 million years old.
Wow.
I mean, what kind of data and information is in there that I haven't been present to? I mean, you talk about energetic or spiritual. It's, you know, the plant contains, it's a computer chip of where it's been growing here in the Nevada area, everything that has happened over 300 million years.
That is incredible.
And so, you know, I had to go through this whole rite of passage with Horsetail. And Horsetail is pretty serious. It's a pretty serious plant, but there are no other plants on the planet that do what it does. And It can heal bone. It can heal small fractures in bones. It can heal tendons and ligaments. It really goes after the inflammation in bone and the damage done to bone and the cartilage and tendons and ligaments. It contains a lot of silica and silicon, things that are super important for, the strappings, our bones, our structure, our frame, and the strappings of the frame that hold it together. So, just think about that. It helps your body to reconfigure itself to hold yourself together, to pull your structure back together.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so it's a pretty powerful. Plus, who knows when I'm going to learn from it, once I start ingesting it. And I can't wait, because in my area in the United States, it's the oldest thing that exists. So why not go to the master, right? You need master healing, go to the master healer, the one that has the most information and data, like a computer chip, being planted into your system. Who knows, what that could open up.
Yeah. And when are you starting this process?
Well, I already did the horsetail, and I had to watch it for a while until there's 3 types of horsetail that grow in the area. A lot of them look snaky, and then you have the ones that look like little pine trees, and it's little pine tree ones that you want to go after for the medicine. And so it took a while for them to develop, and it took a long time for me to find enough. I have a great video called The Horsetail Journey that is recent on my YouTube channel, Conscious of Economics and Urban Farm Project. But it talks about, horsetail and the discussion we had and what it unveiled to me. And it just blew my mind. I literally for 10 minutes through the whole process before I started harvesting, literally probably stood there with my mouth gaping open, looking at it for 10 minutes, just totally blown. And then I made a tincture out of it. So it takes about 4 weeks. So I think I've got about 2 more weeks left. But I have one of the things I'm doing with my herbal wildcrafting medicines is that my focus on medicines. It's interesting when people go to herbal school, they want to make lip balms and hair, regrow stuff and facial stuff. And I'm like, no. I'm going after the hardcore stuff. And so when I have to go to school and I have to make things, it's all around pain, autoimmune system disease, and inflammation. And so all of the plants that I harvest, even here in the desert, it's amazing to me how many weeds focus on different parts of the body and different types of inflammation. And inflammation is kind of the starting point of pain, because it's the breaking down point. So my products are all around, inflammatory, autoimmune system, and pain, and how do I solve that? And so I'm working a program where I'm going to have, some heavy hitter medicines that I put people on a program, tinctures and stuff, so that it can kind of clean up a lot of the inflammatory stuff and then start eliminating the pain, and then getting people on track. And part of that process, the back end, is the horsetail. Because, once I can get the structure, I work on the structure, but I've got these 2 heavy hitter medicines that I'm going to be working with. T-Sol, I haven't harvested yet, but Mullen root, and I use the Mullen root to go after the tissue damage and the inflammation in the tissue that is pulling the bone off. So I'm using that, and then some herbal medicinal plants that actually help with pain, non-cannabinoid, because I have a lot of clients that are drug tested, so they can't really take a lot of the cannabinoid stuff. And then at the back end of it, then what I'll do is I'll give them the horsetail to tighten it all up, to finally tighten the structure up at the end.
Wow.
So, yeah, and so it's so cool, that I have Mullen root and horsetail that are natural chiropractors.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing too, is you have to be really careful where you buy your medicinal tinctures. I mean, there are a lot of reputable companies out there, but when they grow this stuff in bulk, it's a monoculture.
Right.
And these plants don't grow with each other and learn from each other, right? They have relationships in nature, and they specifically grow in areas where they're needed. You know, other plants will call other plants to them, you know, however they make it there.
Wow.
And so they grow together in a community to help each other. And when they're taken out of that community and they're grown like in a monoculture where it's just like one giant field of mullen to be harvested, you know, is it going to have that Big Mac or, you know, that chemicalized kale, you know, is no tincture or a tincture that's monocultural grown, even though it's organic, is it better than nothing? Totally. It's totally better than nothing. But if you can find a local herbalist in your area, or at least close to your area, you're going to get medicines from plants that are actually growing in your area that have information and data about the environment, that the chemicals that are in the environment, how it's adapting to the environment, the water. You know, these plants are going to have relationships to all this stuff, and they're going to have all this data and ways that they have figured out to adapt to it, which means when you ingest them, it teaches your biological hard drive also this information on how to combat some of this stuff biologically without you even having to think about it.
That's amazing.
And so,
I'm just like floored right now.
Well, and this is the other thing too, is if and when I do get land, I will be, you know, Johnny Appleseed, and I will be taking a lot of the seeds that I've been collecting from nature for the last 5 years, and I'll broadcast them out all over the land. But they're going to grow together in the way that they want to grow together. And then I can go out and harvest them, you know, in a natural setting. And I may have been the catalyst or the facilitator for that to happen. But also I'm starting to learn, one of the big things that my focus is large-scale land restoration. And how do I use these plants to go back into areas? You know, how can we collect these seeds from nature and then rebroadcast them into damaged areas so that these plants can also help to heal the soil and get along, you know, riverbeds and, you know, basically help with the erosion of that and helping to clean the water.
Right.
You know, that are in the lakes and the rivers.
And all that area that has, you know, because of fires and things like that. I mean, And
that's why I tell people, you know, in the type of work I do, structural, energetic, herbal medicine, you know, I do it for the people, for the animals, the insects, and the land, because it all fits together. It
does. I'm getting that. Like it's all like it fits together like a natural puzzle piece. It's all balanced. But then, yeah, you're amazing. I just want to say that we have just about a minute left of the show. Want to thank our guest Bridget today for just showering us with wisdom and knowledge. I definitely have a new attitude about weeds. And also, I can be careful about holistic healthcare. You know, just, you know, based on what we talked about today. You're listening to The New Way. We discussed many different topics today, including, but mostly, plants and weeds for food and medicinal purposes. And you can connect with Bridget at Consciousness of Economics YouTube channel, among other places. Is there anything else you wish to add for the last word, Bridget?
No.
Okay. Well, for those of you that are staying on, tuning in for the next show, enjoy your Alex Jones. We will be back here at The New Way tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.